It began like any other mission: diplomacy first, war a distant shadow. But for Commander Nathan Hale of the United Earth Federation, the shadow was already growing long. The planetary system of Ziller 9 had been isolated for decades, its history steeped in mystery, and its people, the Ziller, were rumored to possess one of the deadliest technologies in the galaxy: the Death Suit. The Federation had tried everything to negotiate a peaceful alliance with the Ziller, but each attempt failed. The Ziller, despite being technologically advanced, had rejected every human offer, preferring to remain in their isolationist stance. To make matters worse, the Ziller's deadly warriors wore these suits, black, intimidating, and capable of single-handedly decimating entire platoons of soldiers. Those who had survived encounters with the Ziller spoke in terrified whispers about the suits, about their power. But now, Commander Hale found himself standing before one. It was a chamber deep within the Ziller's fortress-like structure, surrounded by walls of alien metal and translucent stone. The air was thick with a strange humming sound, as though the entire place was alive with energy. Hale's team was with him, but they were quiet, their eyes flicking nervously between the massive suit displayed in front of them and each other. "Commander, this is insane," Lieutenant Thorne muttered under his breath, his voice betraying the fear everyone else was trying to mask. "You know what this thing does, right?" Hale didn't answer at first. His gaze was fixed on the suit. It stood in a transparent containment field, its black armor shimmering with an eerie glow. The alien writing etched across the surface was unreadable, the shapes twisted and jagged. No one had ever been inside one of these suits, not and survived to tell the tale. But Hale wasn't thinking of that. He was thinking of the diplomatic fallout. The Ziller had finally agreed to meet with the Federation, but only under one condition. They would allow the humans to observe a demonstration of their advanced technology. A demonstration that would solidify the Ziller's place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. And Hale had a choice to make. As the delegation leader, he was expected to negotiate, but the moment the Ziller revealed the Death Suit, the tension in the room had become suffocating. The message was clear: this is the power you are dealing with. Now, as Hale stood before the suit, his decision was a dangerous one. The Federation had no idea how the Death Suit worked, but Hale's mind raced. If he could somehow wear it, learn how it functioned, then the Federation could weaponize the suit for its own use. He could turn the tides of war before they even started. The Ziller, with their cold, imperious gaze, had been watching his every move, reading him like an open book. Hale could feel their eyes on him now as if they knew exactly what he was thinking. He had made his choice. Stepping forward, Hale reached for the suit's interface. A series of rapid beeps echoed in the room as the containment field deactivated. The moment the suit was exposed to the air, Hale could hear the whispers of the Ziller soldiers around him. They made no move to stop him, but their eyes gleamed with a mixture of disdain and amusement. They probably thought him foolish, human arrogance they must have thought. And perhaps they were right. Hale didn't care. If he could wear this suit, master its power, it would be his trump card. With the Federation's vast resources, they could reverse engineer it and create their own army of super soldiers. The Ziller, so proud of their invincible warriors, would find themselves fighting an enemy unlike anything they had ever seen. He stepped into the suit. It was heavier than he expected, its black surface almost slick to the touch. The armor seemed to mold itself around him as though it were alive. A slight hum vibrated through his body, and suddenly, a series of lights flickered on inside the helmet. The Ziller soldiers stared, their expressions unreadable. Hale had expected some kind of resistance, some kind of malfunction. But none came. Instead, the suit reacted seamlessly to his movements, adjusting itself to fit him perfectly. The sensation was overwhelming. Every muscle in his body screamed with power. The suit's system seemed to enhance his own natural abilities, making him feel invincible. It was as though he had become one with the armor. But then, something strange happened. The armor's systems began to override his thoughts. Commands from the suit flooded his mind, alien commands, languages he couldn't comprehend, instructions he didn't know how to follow. He struggled to control it, but the suit seemed to want to act on its own. It was as though it had a mind of its own, and it wasn't interested in being controlled. "Commander!" Thorne shouted, breaking Hale's concentration. He tried to focus, but the suit's neural link was like a flood of raw energy coursing through his mind, making it impossible to think clearly. His fingers twitched, as if the suit was forcing him to move in ways he hadn't intended. The Ziller were no longer watching with detached interest. Their expressions had shifted to something darker, more dangerous. The tension in the room had escalated to a boiling point. "What have you done?" one of the Ziller leaders demanded, his voice low and filled with malice. Hale didn't answer. His breath quickened as he struggled to maintain control. His vision began to blur, and the suit seemed to grow heavier with each passing second. It was alive and it was pulling him in, pulling him deeper into its grip. The Ziller soldiers exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves in their native tongue. It was a language Hale could not understand, but the tone was unmistakable. They were angry. The lights above flickered and a strange energy filled the air. Hale felt the weight of their gaze upon him, and suddenly, he realized the true extent of the danger he was in. He had made a mistake. A huge one. "Commander, get out of there!" Thorne shouted again, but Hale's hands were shaking. The suit's neural connection was pushing him beyond his limits. His thoughts felt like they were being overwritten, twisted into something foreign. The Ziller soldiers moved forward, their weapons drawn. And then, it happened. A surge of energy exploded from the suit, slamming Hale into the wall. For a brief moment, everything went black. When Hale's vision returned, the world around him was distorted, as if the very air itself was warped. The Ziller soldiers were frozen in place, their weapons still raised but motionless, their eyes wide with shock. For a moment he wondered if he had died, if the suit had finally claimed him, consumed him in the very way he feared. But as the pain subsided, his thoughts sharpened again, and his senses heightened to an almost unbearable degree. The hum of the suit was no longer just an external sound, it was a part of him, pulsing through his veins like a second heartbeat. He could feel the energy coursing through the armor, like a torrent of raw, untapped power. It was as though the suit itself had unlocked something in his mind, something that connected him to it on a level far deeper than mere physical control. And then the voices started. At first it was faint, a whisper at the edge of his consciousness. But soon it became clearer. A language he couldn't understand yet somehow knew. The words flowed in not as sounds but as direct transmissions to his mind. It was a guttural alien tongue, sharp and rhythmic like the crackling of fire. The phrases were like commands, laden with cold authority, and yet Hale could not resist them. He didn't even want to resist them. The suit, it seemed, had more control over him than he realized. "Commander." Thorne's voice broke through the fog of alien thoughts, a lifeline to the real world. Hale's head snapped toward him, but his movements felt detached as though they weren't entirely his own. Thorne was kneeling beside him, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. "What the hell just happened?" "You." Hale tried to speak, but his voice came out strange, rasping as though the words had to fight their way through a barrier in his throat. "I don't know." The words didn't feel like his own. They felt alien, like they came from somewhere far deeper than his thoughts. Around them, the Ziller soldiers slowly began to stir, their initial shock replaced by anger. One of them, taller and more menacing than the rest, stepped forward, his eyes burning with contempt. "Human," he growled, his voice low and predatory. "You dare wear the death suit? You are not worthy." Hale tried to stand, but his body, no, the suit, was already moving on its own. The armor obeyed the commands coming through the neural interface, lifting him to his feet with unnatural fluidity. The Ziller leader's words came like daggers, but they were drowned out by the thundering pulse of the suit's power surging through his body. "You don't understand," Hale said, his voice strange even to his own ears. The words weren't his own, but they had to be. They were the only thing that made sense now. "This suit, it's not just armor. It's a weapon. A weapon that can change everything." The Ziller leader sneered. "You think you can control it? You are a child." Suddenly, Hale felt a wave of energy crash over him, and with it, the presence of the suit deepened. His vision swirled, and he felt something shift in his mind. A connection to the suit, a bond that made him feel as if he were becoming one with it. The alien commands, the alien language, it was all becoming clearer now. He could hear their thoughts. He could feel their intentions. The suit was not just a suit, it was an extension of their will, a tool forged in the heart of their darkest ambitions. And Hale was now a part of that. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus, to push back. "I won't let you control me," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. But even as he said it, he realized how futile it sounded. The suit's power was overwhelming, and now, it was using him as its vessel. The Ziller leader's expression shifted from anger to something else, something almost amused. "You are already ours, human. There is no escape from the suit's control. You will see." Without warning, the leader lunged at Hale, his movements swift and precise, but Hale's reflexes, the suit's reflexes, were faster. With a motion too quick for human perception, Hale raised his arm, and a pulse of energy shot from the suit's gauntlet, slamming the Ziller leader backward. The energy crackled in the air, a dazzling display of destructive power that left the Ziller soldiers gasping. For a moment there was silence. Then the realization hit them: Hale wasn't just wearing the suit. He was wielding it. The Ziller had underestimated him. They had underestimated the human capacity for resilience, for adaptation. "No one has ever done that before," Thorn breathed, his voice a mix of awe and fear. He stepped back, eyes wide. "Commander, what just happened?" Hale didn't answer. His gaze locked onto the Ziller soldiers, who were now circling him warily, their weapons raised again. They were starting to realize that this was no ordinary human. This was something different, something they hadn't anticipated. But Hale didn't care about their surprise. He was beyond that now. The power of the suit surged through him, feeding his every movement. He could feel the very fabric of his being shifting, his thoughts melding with the suit's alien interface. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a weapon. A weapon that could change the entire course of the galaxy. The Ziller leader, now struggling to rise, looked at Hale with eyes filled with rage. "You think you can control the death suit? You think you can become like us?" He spat on the ground. "You will regret this, human. The galaxy will never forgive you." Hale didn't respond. His mind was focused, his body moving like a machine, like an extension of the suit itself. He didn't need their forgiveness. He didn't need their approval. The Federation would take what he had learned from this encounter and use it. Humanity would rise. And the Ziller would learn the price of underestimating humans. The galaxy would learn the price. As the Ziller closed in, Hale didn't hesitate. With a single thought, the suit's energy surged again, a devastating wave of raw power blasting through the room. The Ziller leader's voice cut off as the shockwave slammed into him. And for the first time, Hale felt a grim sense of satisfaction. The room fell into a tense silence as the echoes of the suit's power reverberated through the chamber. The Ziller soldiers, battered but alive, were now scattered, their expressions a mix of disbelief and rage. They hadn't expected this, no one had. Hale, standing at the center of the storm, felt the weight of their gaze, but his mind was already calculating the next move. He didn't care about their anger. The power of the suit was his now, and with it, he held the upper hand. But despite the exhilaration coursing through him, Hale could feel something more sinister beginning to rise, something darker. The alien connection, the surge of power from the death suit, it was beginning to overwhelm him. The whispers in his mind grew louder, the alien language more insistent. It wasn't just a tool anymore, it was starting to feel like a presence inside his head. "Commander," Thorn's voice cut through the tension. "You've done it. I don't know how much longer I can control it," Hale said, his voice strained, the words coming out harder than he expected. The words didn't feel entirely his own, the thoughts of the suit creeping in at the edges of his consciousness. Thorn looked at him wide-eyed. "You're changing, Commander. I can see it. What's happening?" Hale's eyes locked onto Thorn, but his gaze wasn't entirely his own. The suit had taken on a life of its own, influencing his thoughts, his actions. It was as if his humanity was slipping away, consumed by the foreign intelligence that guided the death suit. He could hear the suit's thoughts now clearer than ever before. They weren't just commands, they were intentions, a set of cold, calculated goals. The suit was an extension of something ancient, something brutal. And it had no regard for morality or compassion. It was designed to conquer, to destroy, to win at any cost. "I'm fine," Hale managed to say, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He took a step forward, his movements fluid, the suit responding instantly to his commands. "But I don't think they're going to just let this go." The Ziller soldiers, though battered, were not finished. The leader who had been knocked back was rising now, blood trickling from his mouth, his eyes burning with fury. He looked at Hale, his gaze filled with contempt. "You think you've won, human? You are nothing but a puppet. The death suit is not for you. It will destroy you just like it destroyed all others who dared wear it," the Ziller leader growled. Hale didn't respond immediately. Instead, he allowed the suit to take over, to guide him, to tell him what to do. He felt a cold satisfaction as the suit's capabilities flared to life once again. The suit had already shown him the extent of its power. He had barely scratched the surface. With a simple thought, Hale raised his hand, and an energy pulse erupted from the gauntlet, slamming into the Ziller leader with a force that sent him sprawling backward. The Ziller soldiers around him flinched, their eyes filled with shock. "I'm not here to play games," Hale said, his voice now deep and chilling, the words dripping with authority that wasn't entirely his. It was the suit speaking through him, guiding his every action. The Ziller soldiers hesitated, their weapons still raised but no longer with the same conviction. Hale's power was undeniable. The suit had transformed him into something different, something greater than the mere human he had once been. And as much as the Ziller hated to admit it, they had no choice but to respect him now. The Ziller leader, barely standing, snarled. "You are a fool human. You do not understand what you've taken. The death suit is not something you can wield for long. It is not just a weapon. It is a curse." But Hale didn't listen. He had no intention of relinquishing control, not now. The whispers from the suit were growing louder, urging him forward, pushing him to assert dominance. His mind swirled with dark possibilities. With the death suit, he could destroy the Ziller and anyone who stood in his way. The power was intoxicating. But beneath that intoxication, a small voice in the back of Hale's mind kept warning him. The suit was dangerous, was alien. And the more he used it, the more it controlled him. Soon, there would be no difference between him and the alien entities that had created it. But that thought felt distant, buried beneath the rush of power that surged through his veins. The suit had given him everything he had wanted: power, control, the means to protect humanity from the galaxy's predators. A sudden thought struck him, and his breath caught in his throat. What if the suit is right? What if it's not just the Ziller I need to conquer, but the entire galaxy? For the first time, Hale felt a chill of doubt. He had been prepared to wield the suit for the Federation, for humanity, but now he wondered, could he control it? Or was it already controlling him? Before he could act on this thought, a new voice interrupted the growing silence. It wasn't a voice from the suit, but from one of the Ziller soldiers. A low, authoritative tone, one of the highest-ranking officers, judging by the way the others responded. "Enough," the soldier said, stepping forward, his armor gleaming ominously in the dim light. "We will not be cowed by a human in an alien relic. You think you've won, but you've only just begun to understand what you've unleashed." Hale's eyes narrowed. "I don't care about your threats. Either submit or face extinction." A flicker of uncertainty crossed the Ziller's face, but it was quickly replaced by cold determination. "You misunderstand, human. You've already sealed your fate. The death suit is not a tool of war, it is a key to something much greater. You have no idea what you've awakened." Hale's hand twitched toward the suit's control panel, ready to unleash another burst of energy. But something about the soldier's words held him in place. A sudden sense of foreboding, like an unspoken truth hovering just out of reach. Before he could act, the soldier spoke again, this time in a voice tinged with deep warning. "You don't know what the death suit was made for. And you don't know who will come for you once you've used it." Hale's grip tightened on the suit's gauntlet, and for the first time, he felt a true icy wave of fear crawl up his spine. The words of the Ziller soldier lingered in Hale's mind like a dark shadow, stretching into the corners of his thoughts. The suit pulsed against his skin, its presence now a constant hum in the back of his consciousness, and for the first time, he felt a hint of doubt. The soldier's warning echoed in his ears, and despite everything, Hale couldn't shake the feeling that something much larger than himself was at play here. Something that had been set in motion long before he ever donned the death suit. "You don't know who you've angered, human," the soldier repeated, his voice cold and unyielding. "This is not just about us. You've touched something far older, far more dangerous than your Federation could ever imagine." Hale took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. His hands, still trembling with the aftershocks of the suit's power, flexed. It was hard to focus, hard to think clearly with the alien presence in his mind constantly urging him forward. But he couldn't afford to falter now. Not with the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. "I don't care who you are," Hale said, his voice cutting through the tension. "This suit is mine now, and I'll use it to protect my people. No one takes that away from me." The Ziller soldier's eyes narrowed, but there was something in his gaze now, something almost respectful. He stood tall, his posture defiant, but a flicker of something deeper, something calculating, passed across his face. "You think you can control it," the soldier said, as if speaking to himself more than to Hale. "But the suit, it controls you." Hale's gaze hardened, and he stepped forward, the suit moving like a second skin. The Ziller soldiers backed away, sensing the growing danger, but the leader's words still haunted him. There was something he hadn't understood, something lurking beneath the surface that the Ziller were not telling him. And for a moment, Hale felt as though he were standing on the edge of a precipice. One step too far, and he might fall into a chasm that would consume him completely. Suddenly, without warning, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The air grew heavier, darker. Hale felt a sharp pull in his chest, as if something was drawing him toward it, something far beyond the physical realm. The whispers in his mind grew louder, merging into one unified command: submit. A surge of panic gripped Hale. The suit, it was starting to overpower him. The Ziller had been right. He could feel it now. The death suit wasn't just a weapon. It was a living entity, an intelligence far more ancient and sophisticated than anything humanity had ever encountered. And it was using him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as if the very fabric of reality was warping around him. A sudden flash of light, followed by a low, bone-chilling hum, pulsed from the heart of the suit. Hale's breath hitched. The feeling of being watched, of being drawn into something far larger than himself, intensified. His vision blurred, and for a split second he lost all sense of time and space. It was as though the very universe was collapsing around him. Then just as quickly the pressure released and Hale staggered back, blinking to clear his head. The whispers were gone. The connection was severed. What the hell was that? Thorne shouted, his voice filled with panic as he grabbed Hale's shoulder. What happened? I don't know, Hale said, his voice hoarse. He looked down at his hands, seeing them trembling despite his best efforts to stay calm. But I felt it. Something's wrong. The suit, it's not just what we thought. It's more. Before Thorne could respond, the door to the chamber slammed open, and a group of high-ranking Ziller soldiers stormed in, their faces set in grim determination. Behind them stood an imposing figure, tall, armored, and radiating an almost otherworldly presence. Hale could feel the weight of the being's gaze even before he saw it. This was no ordinary Ziller. This was something else entirely. The figure spoke, its voice deep and commanding, resonating through the room like a thunderclap. Human, you have no idea what you've unleashed. The Ziller soldiers parted to reveal their leader, an ancient-looking figure with cold, calculating eyes and an aura of authority that seemed to bend the very air around him. You have taken what was never meant for your kind, the leader continued, his tone laced with contempt. The death suit is not a gift. It is a curse. And now you are its servant. Hale stood tall, forcing himself to remain composed despite the wave of dread that was rising within him. He had fought for this power. He had fought for humanity's survival. And he would not let anyone, no one, take that away from him. I'm not anyone's servant, Hale said, his voice unwavering. This suit, this power, it's mine now. And I will use it to protect humanity no matter what it costs. The Ziller leader's eyes flickered with a strange mixture of pity and rage. You cannot control what you do not understand. The death suit was never meant for your species. You will be consumed by it just as those before you were. Hale's jaw clenched, his fingers curling into fists. The suit hummed beneath his skin, responding to his anger, his fear, feeding off it. But deep within him, something else stirred, a dark, foreign presence, urging him to act, to fight. No, Hale said, his voice low and dangerous. You're wrong. I won't be consumed. I will control it. The Ziller leader's lip curled into a smirk. Then you will soon learn the truth. The galaxy does not care for your ambitions, human. The death suit is a key, one that opens the door to forces beyond your comprehension. And when you unlock that door, you will not be able to close it. Hale met the leader's gaze, feeling the weight of his words. But something inside him snapped. They were wrong. They had always been wrong. He had survived everything they had thrown at him. He would not fall now. With a sudden movement, Hale activated the suit's full power. The air around him crackled and the Ziller soldiers recoiled. The suit hummed louder, a deafening roar of energy building within the gauntlet. This isn't over, Hale said, his voice filled with icy resolve. It's just the beginning. And with that, he raised his hand, unleashing a wave of energy that shook the entire chamber. The Ziller leader's eyes widened, but there was nothing he could do as the shockwave tore through the room. Subscribe for more thrilling adventures as humanity fights against the odds, armed with the power of the death suit.